Hey there, welcome back to Creepy Encounters. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos. Serious, people who truly believe they have experienced a ghost or demonic presence, what's your story? I used to have night terrors all the time as a very young boy. I'm talking real young, like I can barely remember a lot of this young. So anyways, from what I remember, it felt like something was in the room with me and sometimes it would grab my feet. That's what it felt like anyways. I distinctly remember my feet always being touched or grabbed. So here's where it gets interesting. One day more recently as an adult, I'm talking with my parents. They're discussing how I was a terrible sleeper as a child. That's when I tell them I used to have night terrors as a child. Things used to grab me. So this line of discussion brings them to tell me of an event they remembered happening. They go on to tell me about me crying one night in my crib. I slept in another room down the hall. My father gets up to check on me. They used to leave the door ajar to my room so they could hear me. The first thing he noticed is that the light to my room is on, which is strange because he knows he turned it off. So as he starts walking towards my room, the door abruptly slams shut. Now my dad thinks someone's in the house, in my room, so he runs in and bursts into my room, only to find it empty and me standing in my crib crying. He said it was the creepiest thing he's ever witnessed and had completely blocked it out till now. Dang bro. I had a bro-in-law who used to have night terrors. He would yell and attack his partners in their sleep. He also had his box spring on the ground because he said he used to see eyes under his bed as a kid. He had to smoke CBD before bed always so that they weren't violent anymore. Night terrors are serious and not just bad dreams. Most of the comments are scary/creepy, so I'll share a more wholesome one, I think. Hope my English makes sense and keep in mind that some details are fuzzy. When I was 9, my dad died in a crush. He was on his motorcycle and a car hit him and then left him on the side of the road. He was wearing a helmet, but he got thrown on a road lamp on his abdomen and got a serious case of internal bleeding. The hospital called my mom during the night and I was left home alone. I remember thinking that he'll be fine. He had been in an accident before and he only got some bruises. So I went back to sleep and didn't give it more thought. I should mention that my dad has been working on the fields for many years and his hands were very rough. So, at some point during the night I remember being in that half-asleep state, where you're kind of aware of your surroundings but it also kind of feels like a dream, and I felt someone stroking my hand. It was a very familiar and particular sensation of another person's hand, because I could feel the roughness against my skin. I remember thinking, being half asleep and not registering any of the information about the accident, that it was my dad who was getting ready really early to go to work and he was checking on me. I woke up the next morning, not remembering anything and not knowing that he was already dead. I was sent to some relatives for the day. My dad had died and the funeral was on the same day, but no one told me until after it was all over. Years later I remembered this incident at a therapy session, and I'd like to think that he was just saying goodbye as a ghost of some sort. It's kind of silly and I know that it was probably my way of coping as a kid and my mind made it up, but I can really still remember the sensation against my hand smile. This is a story about a ghost, but it's a happy story. When I was 3 to 4 I went to my dad and told him that I saw his dad last night. He laughed at me and rolled his eyes because his dad died when he was 13. I was annoyed he didn't believe me. I told him he sat at the foot of my bed and he was smoking like this. I put my hand to my mouth like I was using an old tobacco pipe. I had never seen one before and my dad knew then that it was true because his father always had a corncob pipe. My Atatatsiak, grandfather, would visit me now and then in my childhood, and I became his admiring granddaughter. I even told my dad that someday when I die that I will get to sit on my Atatatsiak's lap. I don't remember any of this, but I do have an image in my head of a dark-skinned man at the foot of my bed holding a pipe and wearing plaid, and I know it's him. I lived in a 200-year-old apartment building. A serial killer lived there before me. There was a haunting tour bus that'd go through the city talking about spooky stuff, and it would drive past my front door. Mostly doors just swung open and closed at like 3 a.m., which was annoying. When I was 13 years old I would stay up past my bedtime. I was going back to my room after getting a snack. I saw a dark shadowy figure just sprint past me into the darkness behind me since I had just turned off the lights. I'm not religious and I'm very skeptical when it comes to paranormal stories, but I could never explain this one. When I was under 10 years old, I woke up from my sleep to realize my night light had turned off. I don't remember this being odd. It was an old Virgin Mary night light, I was raised Catholic, that hung high on my wall. I think it turned off often. I got up out of bed and turned it back on. When I turned around, a small demonic-looking shadow was standing in my doorway. The hallway was not dark, We had an outdoor light that lit up the hallway pretty well through the window, and it was clearly a small dark shape standing there. I ran back to my bed, hid under the covers, and prayed. When I was a kid, around 8, I knew my great-grandmother. She lived with her daughter, my great-aunt, my mom, her granddaughter, and my brother and I. One day she stopped living in the house, and not understanding the concept of death in my young brain, I thought nothing more of it. I actually don't remember even thinking about how she wasn't there anymore. One midnight, I go up to get a drink of water. I turn out of the hallway and across the living room into another hallway is this weird mist. It's like a cloud, standing by my right side of the wall. It was floating about 1 foot or 2 off the ground, and then slowly began to drift into the wall and disappear. I stared at this thing for about a minute, blinking. And I knew I was awake. It was one of the few times I actually saw something. After it disappeared, I ran to that side of the wall and checked it out. Obviously, there was nothing. I then ran to my great-aunt's room, explaining everything that had just happened. She then proceeded to tell me that one day, my great-grandmother was walking down that hallway and collapsed into the wall, breaking her hip. Soon after, she got pneumonia and passed away. She said that I had probably saw her, and that she was saying hello. I never felt scared of the presence, more so fascinated. I still think about it sometimes, and I wish I had gotten to know her better. I've had a number of experiences. To name a few notable ones, one morning my wife and I were getting ready for work at the house she lived in when we first met. I was at the kitchen sink, when a wooden spoon that was on the counter above the sink shot at me like a dart, hitting me in the stomach not very hard. I thought her son was maybe playing a joke on me, but when I looked up she had seen it too. That really freaked us out. Another time at my old apartment it was just us two and the dogs. I lived with roommates, so when we heard loud prominent footsteps coming up the stairs we didn't think much of it. We heard them come all the way up to the top, and even down the hall towards my room. My door being opened, both the dogs perked up very attentively. When nobody made their presence known, the dogs actually snapped up and ran barking all the way down the stairs. I honestly thought an intruder was in the house, so I jumped up and followed. When we got to the bottom of the stairs in the living room I fully expected to be confronting someone, but there was no one there. Even the dogs were perplexed, and sniffing around everywhere. I check every room, behind every door etc. That one was a trip. I've got numerous stories, and I even have video on my YouTube of what we believe was a demonic presence. So I was like 7 years old. I woke up in the middle of the night and felt a cold gaze upon me. I looked over from my bed and saw a small creature with glowing red eyes. I started screaming, and so my parents walked in, and it disappeared, and never came back. But my parents saw it. I was in a haunted house in Stratford-on-Avon, UK, Shakespeare's birthplace, and we were on a tour and looking around in a big open room. I was standing by myself with no one around me, when I heard a growl and felt a hand touch the back of my neck. Turned around and no one was near enough to me. Freaked me out. Later we heard heavy footsteps in the room next door to the one we were in, even though we were the only ones in the building. But looking back, that could have easily been faked. Still can't explain the neck touching though, and it haunts me sometimes when it's dark and by myself. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around the world. See you in the next video. Bye.